clever bug. The conversation.
It turns out that this cow has been injected with growth hormones, and instead of its digestive acid dissolving my body, it is instead causing me to prematurely age.
Dunk, 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 dunk! Hey, Hyle. Dunk, dunk.
Who's there?
Ball.
Ball who?
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought it could feel so free. Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me.
Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
I'm Jeff. Onan.
That little bit of comedy, that little performative spout of nonsense is going to keep this episode from being monetized on YouTube.
What? Because I sound like the real thing.
The real thing, the theme from what was it? The Greatest American Hero? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, thanks for that, Jeff.
I sound too close to the real... Well, we can edit it out in post.
No, it's fine. You know what? I sacrifice my income for my art all the time.
We were going to make a lot of money from the Dunk Dunk episode of the Donkey Donk podcast.
That's right. We were. This is going to be a hot one because we've got to talk about Dunk Dunk, but I think we're kind of whistling past the graveyard, past the Cursed Crater Cemetery, because it's almost time, Jeff. It's almost time for Stinky Ape Summer. Following DK Vine's embrace of the Stinky Ape Summer branding last year, which is our replacement for the game announcement season that used to be defined by E3. E3 is no longer among the living. And as I've explained before, I refuse to play by Jeff Keighley's rules. Won't do it. So Stinky Ape Summer is our branding. Now, Stinky Ape Summer, of course, runs through the entirety of June, July, August, and up until September 19th. Talk Like a Pirate Day. Now, Stinky Ape Summer 2025 launches with the Switch 2 this Thursday, June 5th. And that's when Matt and I will host a live kickoff conversation on Twitch at 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. BST that previews the months ahead. But of course, Jeff, this Stinky Ape Summer goes well beyond what it usually does. You know, it's usually about, I hope they announce some great DKU game reveals, at the Nintendo Direct, at the Xbox Showcase. And we will still cover the Xbox Showcase this Sunday. It's at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. BST. We'll cover any potential Nintendo Directs along the way, the same way we would at E3 time. We'll search for those surprises that relate to the Donkey Kong universe. But who are we kidding? The core of Stinky Ape Summer this year is Donkey Kong Bonanza, which comes out on July 17th. And it heralds a new era for the DKU, so we'll be celebrating its release from now until September. We are on the cusp, Jeff, of the summer of Donkey Kong. Can you believe it?
I can't. I don't know. Yeah, it's gonna be cool.
Now, before we get to Stinky Ape Summer, there is the aforementioned piece of business. One last thing that the Kongversation needs to address before we start fretting over our Switch 2 pre-orders. What's likely the final game release that DK Vine will cover for the original Nintendo Switch, and the last game of this current era of the DKU. Dunk dunk!
Dunk, 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 dunk.
Yes, Jeff, we must dunk so that the summer may donk. Dunk Dunk was released May 8th on Steam and the original Nintendo Switch, developed by Badgerhammer Games and published by Platonic Friends. Now, it features a roster that includes the characters Yooka-Laylee, and Beebs from off of Demon Turf, among other Platonic Friends, indie game characters, and assorted original weirdos. And I know Platonic is a rough topic to broach right now. The enthusiasm of talking about a game that even brushes up against the Yooka-Laylee banner feels horribly muted right now. It feels like it's just bad timing given the recent layoffs at Platonic. And I briefly talked about that at the top of the show a few episodes back. And in that time, Platonic has released a statement, and we've had it confirmed independently through our sources that upwards of 17 people were let go at Platonic, with those fired mostly being those not in senior positions or existing outside of the coding department. So we will obviously address all of that more in depth on a future conversation, but I don't want to really weigh any of that negativity against Dunk Dunk itself. Rebecca McCarthy, a former narrative designer on Yooka-Laylee, who was part of the layoffs, said this on social media, and I agree. No matter how you feel about this, it shouldn't be held against the likes of the Platonic Friends releases like Cattle Country or Dunk Dunk, which were developed by independent studios and just had their games published by Platonic. Like in the case of Dunk Dunk, that was Badgerhammer Games, and we really shouldn't equate what's happening with Platonic with Dunk Dunk. It's not fair to them and all the hard work they put in on it. So let's get into it. Let's get into our first impressions of Badgerhammer Games' labor of love, Dunk Dunk, on this episode of the Kongversation.
Dunk.
Yeah.
I like to say the title. I do like to say the title of this game.
It's a great title, and it's fun to say. And I think that's part of the battle right there. How's your game going to get recognized? How's your game going to stand out?
It feels like you're starting a chant. Like you start slowly and you kind of look around, you're like, dunk, 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 dunk. And the whole crowd is joining in and everyone's yelling dunk, 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 dunk. I want to shout when I say it.
It also sounds like maybe something you would chant at a ritual sacrifice, as they go to rip out somebody's heart.
Or just a regular baptism. Or maybe an Oreo contest.
Yes, an Oreo contest. Those classic Oreo. Is this a contest where they have to bake the Oreos or eat the Oreos?
Well, they're dunking them in milk because it's who can eat the most.
Oh, I thought this was just a random idea you had. Oreos, there should be contests based around them.
Just insert any noun followed by the word contest. Yeah, I like that. Let's make this episode a podcast contest. I'm into that.
Yeah. Really quick, I'm shocked. I am shocked. This is the day before the Nintendo Switch 2 releases, and we've got people in our live stream chat. Of course, we live stream episodes of the Kongversation for our $5 and up patrons, and I want to give a shout out to those waiting in the wings right now, chanting Dunk Dunk: March Rose, Chocolate Milk Drinker, Porygon Q, and Me Muppet.
And upwards of ones of thousands of others. Well,
the Dunk Dunk cult, it's a growing community. Hopefully after this episode, we will convince some people to pick it up, because as I was saying, it's kind of hard for indie games to really stand out anymore, especially when you look in your various shops, your digital storefronts, and you just see pages after pages of slop, just utter crap, like not even shovelware, what they would use to call it, just AI generated garbage that barely qualifies as a game. And so the real gems are kind of hard to find. And of course, DK Vine, we cover everything that falls under the umbrella of the DKU, the Donkey Kong universe. And every so often, a game, an indie game, will be part of that, and we get to talk about it here on DK Vine, which is always a treat. I always like when we can talk about something that's kind of under the radar and give it a little bit of a shine, a little bit of a spotlight, if you will. Not a spotlight episode. We'll do the Dunk Dunk spotlight in 20 to 25 years. But this is our first impressions of Dunk Dunk. Now, people might be asking, what is Dunk Dunk? I know something
Hyle,
about...
you're getting ahead of yourself. What? Because I'm on the episode, and I have a special goal on the episodes about season 13. I have to get into that before we get into that.
Well, Jeff's whole thing in season 13 is because the number 13 is a scary number. Jeff will say something scary on the podcast, but my argument is the scariest things come when you least expect them. If I know when the scary thing is coming, I'll have that guard up.
I like that notion, but you're really playing with fire and trying to make me forget to say it. You're going to make... because the audience is always quick to tell me that I didn't do the thing. So, I guess I'll try to jump scare you with it later, but...
Yeah. Because I do have my guard up. It's like when you block in Dunk Dunk.
Well, what's Dunk Dunk, Hyle? Other than the source of where Diddy Kong gets the acronym on the pin that's on his new hat. Other than that, what's Dunk Dunk?
Is that our new headcanon? Diddy is just a big fan of the Dunk Dunk
He's a fan
League?
of Dunk Dunk. That's what the DD pin is for.
Yeah, I like that. I really like.
Somebody tell Cameron.
Cameron, it's okay. Diddy is just a fan of the Galaxy Tour in Dunk Dunk.
What's Dunk Dunk, though?
Dunk Dunk is an indie game. It was developed over the course of 7 years by effectively a two-person team. This two-person team, it's a team of Nicks, Jeff. They comprise Badgerhammer Games. Nick Gripton, who was in charge of animation, illustration, and design, and Nick Holder, in charge of development, programming, and game design. And can I just say Gripton and Holder both sound like things you can do in Dunk Dunk.
Yeah, I was going to say. Well, and hey, it took them 7 years to make it. Sounds like it came out just in the nicks of time.
Bah! Yeah. You
Dunk
bested
Dunk!
me. Dunk Dunk! So, additionally, it was produced by Christoph Peretti with sound design by Josh Ryan and additional sound by Seb Zab.
Which is a sound effect you could hear.
It is. You might hear it in Dunk Dunk. They might have slipped that in.
People love jokes about their names. I think that's a universal thing. Everyone loves jokes about their names.
Yeah, as somebody who has an unusual name, it never gets old. Believe me.
There's a certain Comedy Central stand-up puppeteer who has turned the name Jeff into a bit that plagued me through my schooling. But we're not going to repeat that here because we don't like that guy. He's a hack. Hack.
I've just been laid into other Jeffs since this episode began. Jeff Keighley, the puppet guy. And I don't know if I really just have it out for Jeffs or if I really just want to prop up my friend Jeff Onan. I don't know.
I think that anyone who's forced to do a 4 hour and 15-minute long conversation episode about season 15 of Sea of Thieves, they're going to start lashing out at the namesake of their co-host. But
it could be. I don't know.
I contend that the issue with that episode is it's just that we just like each other too much. We didn't want to hang up.
Well, let's try not to repeat the error this time around.
Yeah, let's keep it moving. Let's keep it easy breezy, Duncan.
Quick match.
The main idea of Dunk Dunk is you have a 2D arena, a side-on view, much like a 2D platformer. And in that arena, there's a goal on each side, and you play in teams, a 1v1 or a 2v2 match, where you fight over a ball and you try to put the ball in the goal. It's basketball. It's basically basketball. It's basically basketball as a 2D platformer, but you can rotate your arms in a full 360-degree arc around your body so that you can do sick dunks. Dunks. And there's a few other special twists, so we'll get into all of the details of it, but that's the main pitch line of it.
Yeah, it's a very, very simple premise. It's not anything revolutionary or groundbreaking, and there's a lot of inspiration from other games in there across the eons. I think you've got some examples that come to mind.
Yes. Well, I as soon as Platonic Friends revealed or announced this game on their YouTube, I immediately messaged you on Discord and said, I want to be on the Kongversation episode when we cover Dunk Dunk.
Yeah, when I saw Dunk Dunk's announcement, I knew this was going to be Jeff's bag. I knew this was going to be right up your alley. And I was excited about that because this is the kind of thing where I feel like if I didn't have you in my friend circle, if you weren't on the DK Vine staff, it would be like pulling teeth getting to talk about this with somebody. But for whatever reason, our brains are completely aligned with this kind of game.
Yeah, and so what is this kind of game? I love this kind of game. I tried to think of like a succinct way to describe what this genre is, and I failed. So I'll call it a jousty style 2D map platformery battle or sports objective game. And if that doesn't illustrate it for you, I'll just give you examples. There's old school games like Joust, like Balloon Fight, like the Mario Brothers in the arcade, which the arcade version I don't think had battle mode, but when you can play that game on Super Mario Brothers 3, Super Mario All-Stars, the Super Mario Advance games, those all include a battle mode. There are modern games in this sort of genre like Star Wall, Sports Ball, or Killer Queen Black, which I love, which I first discovered at E3 2019 when I was there with my friend Hyle and others. This kind of game sort of veers into the territory of platform fighters like DKU games Super Smash Brothers or Brawl Out. It's sort of similar, but I consider it a separate thing because those games go full-on fighting game. You have an entire move set where every character has tons of attacks, and what makes this genre its own unique thing is that it's very simple. That's the main thing about it. Whether we're playing Dunk Dunk or Joust or Mario or Star Wall or Sports Ball or another DKU example, #IDARB.
Yes. So when this was announced, and of course Yooka and Laylee were part of the reveal trailer, it was like, hey, Yooka and Laylee are going to be playable in this. I was excited because just for me, presentation goes a long way, and we'll get into the presentation of Dunk Dunk, but #IDARB or IDARB to keep things simple. IDARB is a game that you and I both have a lot of affection for, and part of that is because the sense of humor of IDARB is just kind of dialed into what we find funny, and it's the kind of thing that like most of our audience just doesn't care about. But it's just a very blunt, simplistic sports game that's just overloaded with bombast. And that extends to the character selection. Like IDARB, of course, had the rare limited team with Banjo-Kazooie, Saberman, a Fudgehog cameo, etc., Conquer, but
it also had a separate Killer Instinct team with a whole roster of, I think, 8 Killer Instinct playable characters.
But then it also had its own original teams, like the Mustache Cops, Your Mom, just a team comprised of moms. There was Breakfast Food in a
Breakfast
team.
Was a good team. I like to main Breakfast. I would play as Bacon.
There was a dead U.S. president team, which included the likes of JFK and Richard Nixon. And it just kept going, and it was just so weird.
Nixon versus Conquer on the Hell Court. That was a good setup. That's like the Fox only, no items, Final Destination of hashtag IDARB. Yeah.
So when IDARB became DKU, when they added the rare limited team, I think it was early 2016, I fell in love. And
I think it might have been a little earlier than that, but okay.
Well, I know IDARB came out first, but then there was an update with the rare limited team. Okay. So it was just basically one of my go-to favorites on the Xbox One. And part of that, too, is it really channeled a very specific era of games from my childhood, specifically something like NBA Jam, where the sports is almost ancillary to the presentation, to how absurd things are getting. And NBA Jam's very like arcadey. It had a lot of just outlandish effects and flourishes to what was otherwise just an NBA game, an NBA licensed basketball game. Now, IDARB was more soccer than anything else, association football. Whereas Dunk Dunk, of course, is basketball. So it kind of goes back to that NBA Jam ideal just a little bit more.
And whereas IDARB is fairly simplistic in its gameplay, we found that Dunk Dunk had a little bit of hidden surprise depth, but we'll get into that. Let's elaborate a little bit more on, you brought up the tone, the presentation, the personality of the game, and also Yooka-Laylee are in it. One of the big things you're going to notice right out the gate is that the characters have absurd body proportions, really long arms that assist in their ability to do dunking, but also to do dancing. They do funny dances. It's very TikTok / Fortnite, but in a non-cringe way.
It's TikTok and Fortnite meets Nintendo's arms.
Yeah, it has an arms feel, the way everyone has long arms. And at first, I think that seeing Yooka-Laylee in this body style takes a little getting used to, but it did grow on me.
No, everything about Dunk Dunk requires it to grow on you a little bit. I remember, because I bought it twice. Actually, I bought it 3 times, but I bought 2 copies, one for the Steam and one for the Switch. And I first played it on my Switch. And I remember just thinking, I don't know if I really like this. It's not really gelling with me after the first match. Just everything about it took a while to get used to. And then after about 10 minutes, that's where the shift starts happening, where you start figuring things out. And even things like the art direction, it just suddenly makes sense to you and you begin to appreciate it. So it's kind of a very hard game to really get without playing. And I just want to stress that right here. Screenshots, videos, I think it requires a little bit of time spent with it to really begin to appreciate just everything about it.
Yeah, I'd say that's true. And yeah, I think that the presentation, once you start to get into the gameplay and can functionally, do it, and you feel like you're getting good enough to do what you want to do with your character, then everything else starts to settle in and make sense, because you can enjoy the presentation when you're not flailing around confused by the controls. Not that the game is obtuse or anything. It has a very unique style that takes time to get used to. So, so you got that. It, of course, has a huge cast of guest characters, indie characters from various indie games, including games that are under Platonic Friends banner and other ones. Do you want to list them off? Yeah,
I'll list them off really quick. From Platonic and Platonic Friends, you've got Yooka-Laylee, Beebs, Elsie, Lil Gator, Lily from Blossom Tales 2, The Minotaur Prince, and Ringo. No. Sadly, it's Ringo from Corpo Nation, The Sorting Process, not Richard Starkey, which would be amazing. I think he would be right at home in a dunk like situation.
I agree.
Yeah. We also have from other indie games and studios, Lil Guardsman, the Onion King and Chef from Overcooked, ! Berserk Boy, Pinky with a star next to its name, the Pinky from Promise Mascot Agency, and Jot from the Plucky Squire. Now I know most of you probably won't know any of those characters. Maybe you'll be familiar with Overcooked. I think Promise Mascot Agency got a little bit of buzz when it came out the other month. But otherwise, it's pretty obscure. But I like that they
I've heard of most of these games. I might not know the names of the characters
Sure.
in them, and I haven't played a lot of these games, but at least I've heard of the games. They're not they're not nobody, but it's
they're
not
not
the
nobody.
It's not like I know that there was a wave of indie crossovers for a while where there were a few mainstays that were in everything. Shovel Knight, Juan from Guacamelee, the runner from Bit Trip Runner was in everything. And I feel like, those guys aren't in here, but the selection here is cool. It's got its own charm that these aren't the A team of the indie sphere. These are the charming underdogs.
You've got a big pinky finger. I mean, that's getting pretty weird, and I think it fits Dunk Dunk's aesthetic. Now, Chocolate Milk Drinker in a live stream says, not a fan of whenever multiplayer games make new characters. 2 broken heart emojis. But Dunk Dunk does have original characters, and I think they really are mostly fun because it's effectively a monster mash. This game is more or less, aside from those indie characters, primarily based around horror and sci-fi tropes.
Yeah. I'm not going to list every single character because there actually are a lot. I wrote all of them down, and we did find out, and we'll talk about this in a second, that when you go to Quick Match, everyone's name and bodies are sort of randomized. I'll explain that in a minute. But we did find out that there are canon names for all of them because you can find that when you go to challenge mode and face challenges, they actually have names that are not randomized. Here's a few of my favorites. Yes, that was a huge relief because it was something I was actively complaining about when we played, was that I like all these designs, but it seems like they don't have names. They don't have, I can't get into a character if it doesn't have a name. They just seem random. But no, they do have names, and some of them are pretty cool. And like you said, there's a monster mashy kind of thing because there's a lot of horror monsters. There's a whole category of dinosaurs. There's a category of aliens. There are some robots and some hell wraiths. There's a shark man, and it's all cool. But here are a few of the highlights. There's a raptor, a dinosaur raptor that is named Masta Rapta (Daraptile). Masta Rapta (Daraptile).
It's pretty good.
Pretty good. There's we like Count Dunkula.
We love Count Dunkula.
We love Count Dunkula. I liked so there was a guy who is just looks like a swamp thing, and or some sort of tar monster. And one thing you'll notice is that when characters are randomized, their skin color is also randomized because you can change up your team and change the color of your character. So I didn't know what was the canon color of this guy. It turns out it's white, and it's a marshmallow. It's a melty marshmallow monster, and his name is Marshmallow Melty. And if you face him in challenge mode, he can appear on one of 2 different teams that alongside a zombie. So you have a zombie and a melty marshmallow, and they will appear on one of 2 different teams. They can be on the white worms or the mauve maggots. So they have sort of a detritus theme to them, or whatever, decomposers. Who else? We liked Mermoido, the gill man.
The gill man.
There's a shark man whose canon name is just Jaws 3D.
Yeah, and you pointed out when we saw that, they probably are just getting away with that under the radar. It's probably not something you can actually call a character, but...
Right. Well, and there is a facsimile of a xenomorph from Alien, and that character's canon name is just Xeno. Xeno. So that's a sampling of kind of the characters you can run into. There are a few unlockable characters that you can get by completing some tougher achievements. I like these characters. I like their style, and I like the art style of the game and the kind of attitude of the game. There's a werewolf named Wolfie. He's neat.
It's the kind of character assortment that, of course, you and I are going to love because we love Halloween and we love just horror tropes. I'm not a horror guy, but I love horror tropes. I love spooky monster mashes, graveyard smashes, and that's just my thing. I mean, I love Grab by the Ghoulies, and this is just the basketball version of Grab by the Ghoulies. There, I just sold it to one more person.
Yeah, it's what'd you say before? It was ARMS meets NBA Jam meets Grab by the Ghoulies
meets TikTok
meets
Fortnite.
Dunk. So yeah, you've got obviously one of the kind of staples of this kind of game. If you're going with the over the top silly sport, something that #IDARB did. Another good game I like called Sports Ball. They do the over the top sort of parody of sports with the announcer and the catchphrases, like in NBA Jam, the boom shakalaka, that thing.
Yeah.
Every game has to have their version of that, and this game has the funny announcer. It has different funny names for all the different kinds of trick shots you can do every time you score a goal. It's fun. Like, for example, one of the things is that if you accidentally score a goal on your own basket, it's called a bag of beans. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is, but I like it.
It's memorable. Yeah, the announcer, it doesn't just devolve into non sequiturs like in NBA Jam or IDARB. I mean, IDARB, of course, that's the main source of humor in IDARB, is every time you score a goal, the announcers will just say the most random shit from probably a classic movie, but
pop culture.
Yeah.
I drink your milkshake.
I'll have what she's having, and et cetera, et cetera. It's not quite to that level, but I was very excited. We found out that the original characters all have canon names. I was excited to find the announcer has a canon name, because if you check the credits, it's listed as the Incredible Butch commentator, and voiced by Joshua Graham, IRL. So there you go.
I like that. I did not know the commentator had a canon name. It's Butch. Yeah. It's the Incredible Butch commentator.
Yeah. So the presentation is just spot on with this. And it's just the kind of thing that every time you score a goal, you feel good about it. The game reinforces that dopamine hit because you just feel like you've accomplished the greatest thing. Even if you're playing against the CPU in very easy mode, you score that goal, you make that basket, you put the ball through the swirling black hole, and the game is going to make you feel like you just pulled off an impossible feat.
Hey, Hyle.
Yeah.
Do you hear that?
Hear what, Jeff? Hear what?
Hold on. You really don't hear that?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Something's coming. It's my scary fact of the episode. Get ready. Ah! Did I get you? Ah! Okay. So every episode of season 13 of the Kongversation podcast, I'm going to tell everybody one scary thing so that they know about it. That way they can be prepared and they don't have to piss themselves like my good friend Hyle Russell. So here it goes. Ah! Hyle, I know that you've just had the hairs stand up on the back of your neck, and maybe you might want to mute your microphone so we don't hear your teeth chattering together and clanking and clattering. But I'm about to tell you one of the things. Here you go. Did you know that when you get an organ transplant from doctor surgery, did you know that they don't take out the old one? They leave the old one in there and they put the new one on top of it, because if the new one gets rejected, they want the old one in there to still, have some functioning to be a backup, and they never take it out. So if you get a kidney transplant, you just are walking around with another one in there. You got extras, and there are people walking around with too many, and that is your scary thing of the episode.
I don't like that. You know what I like? I like werewolves and gillmen and weird melted marshmallow monsters. I don't like thinking about having too many organs.
Yeah, sometimes people... I think that the record there is a guy who has 8 kidneys. So...
You're just hoarding at that point. You're just collecting kidneys.
Yeah, and I don't mean that he ate kidneys. I'm not talking about like a Hannibal Lecter. That's Halloween. All right, I'm talking about a real guy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Hyle, you did talk about that they really sell this game, Dunk Dunk, with the presentation. There's one element of the presentation that you and I are maybe not completely sold on. And this is the randomization. They have a thing going where every time you jump into a match of Dunk Dunk, all these characters that they have, you can mix and match their body parts. I can take the head off of this one and the body off of this one and the legs off of that one, and then I can change their colors. And then I can change their name, and the game will give me a procedurally generated word salad. What do you call that thing where you plug the words in?
Mad Libs?
Mad Lib. They
Mad
create
TV.
Mad TV, Mad Magazine. Here, I'll give you one right now. What about John Claude Bam Bam? That's a Mad Magazine. All right. Tim Hortons, here's a who. So they randomize the name, and they give you a crazy name, and then they'll randomize the name of your team. They'll randomize your body part. Every time you jump into a match, you just get given this mess of words and body parts, and it's funny. There's something funny to it.
Oh yeah.
But then you just kind of, it can get a little old when you want to play as a certain thing. I want to play as Yooka-Laylee, so I got to go and find that character instead of being a mixed match. And then I want to have a funny name, but I want to have one that I like. And then every match I have to find one I like again, because I lose the one that I had. I can't save any good funny ones. I can't save anything. That's the downside to it.
Once you leave a session, like if you don't just rematch, or if you're like outside of the Galaxy Tour, you wrap that up, you have to then select a new team name every time. And it's all randomized. And so occasionally you'll find one you actually really like, you find funny, and you're like, yeah, let's go with that. But you can't save it. You can't like hang on to it, which is a shame, because I wish that was a feature, just because it does get old having to sift through them. And the way my brain worked, I'm never just going to accept the first name the game gives me. I'm going to have to scroll through until I find one I like. But then if you keep scrolling, you can't go back. It'll be gone.
It gives you the exact same feeling as, and we're getting so dangerously into territory that the only people on the planet Earth who can relate to both of these examples are the two people on this podcast. But I was going to relate Dunk Dunk to the infinite pirate generator on Sea of Thieves, and
I knew this is where you were going to go with this.
Right, because it has the same feel. It's like, oh, okay, well, I don't like this one. I'll get it. I don't like any of these pirates. I'll get a new set. Oh, I don't like any of these. I'll get a new set. And they did add the option to the infinite pirate generator when you're. This is what happens for people who don't know. When you're creating your pirate for the very first time in Sea of Thieves, this is what you get. The game gives you 8 pirates pre-generated. You do not get to go into a set of sliders and choose how you want your pirate to look. the game gives you 8 options and says pick one. And if you don't like these, we'll give you 8 more and then pick one. And if you don't like those, we'll give you 8 more forever. We'll just keep throwing random ones at you until you like it. But if you just keep hitting, then you're like, oh, but I had one 2 pages ago that was like decent, and now I can't go back. And it gives the same feeling here. I will say, Hyle, you and I stumbled upon while we were playing the challenge mode, or maybe it was during our Galaxy tour. We had a pretty good set of names.
Yeah. There were some surprising ones too. Like, generally, Dunk Dunk keeps the humor relatively family friendly, but occasionally some stuff will creep in that you'll be like, oh, well, that's a little bit of a surprise, a delightful surprise. I'm not complaining, but
yeah. So here's a couple that we had when we played our Galaxy tour. I was hitting the random button. I was picking out my name, and I stumbled upon Junior Ref, which is what the name Jeff is short for, actually. If you look it up in the, I think that's called epidemiology, which is the origin of the word. And, or no, it's epidemiology. Whatever it is, it's a Junior Ref. I liked that. I was like, hey, I'm Jeff. I'm the Junior Ref. I like it. So that's going to be the name I'm going to use. And then Hyle, at the same time, got Unnaturally Small OJ.
Yeah.
We like that. Driving around and like, have you ever seen those when you were a kid, did you ever have like a toy-sized Jeep that you could, like a plastic Jeep you could ride in?
No, a Power Wheel? No, I always was envious of those.
I had the Little Tykes one that you had to paddle with your feet like a Flintstone.
Yeah.
But they have the ones that are powered and they're like Jeeps. And now I'm just picturing like the Unnaturally Small OJ is a child inside of like a plastic electric powered Ford Bronco.
Yeah. On the LA freeway.
Yeah, someone in the back seat trying to make sure he don't do nothing. All right. But our team name was even better because the team name was the Gooning Cowgirls.
Yeah.
Dunk, 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 dunk.
So it's a shame we can't save those. And like I understand like they wanted to have this like procedurally generated naming system. I mean, that's part of the fun, that's part of the charm, I suppose. And you don't want to have anybody come up with names that are offensive or hateful, but at the same time, there's not online multiplayer, so I don't really know why.
There's a humor to it in the same way that, for example, when we on the Kongversation podcast did our annual DKU draft episode, we get a little bit of a tickle out of choosing our team name. And having a team name is just funny. And that happens with any kind of group activity where you have to pick a team name. And this game is like, well, yes, we'll do that. We will be the funny name generator for you. And then there's funniness in how, I mean, I'm the generation that grew up on SpongeBob SquarePants, which I've seen a lot of articles claiming that was going to ruin the brains of children. And it did, because here I am today. But I'm the generation that likes non sequiturs. If you just take any two nouns and put them together in a way that they should not be, I'm going to think that's funny most of the time. Like, I can't think of another example of one of these names that they'll generate, but they're I don't know. You just get you hit here random and it pops up and it says like Dinosaur Sister, and you're like, well, okay, that's fun. I like Dinosaur Sister. And then you hit it again and it's just like Waffle Cops, and you're okay, cool. I like that. So I like the randomness of it. I just wish that it wasn't so in your face of like every time you want to play, you're resetting the randomizer. You have to reselect your character. You can never keep the names you like. It's a little disappointing in that way, but it can be funny though.
Sure. Yeah. I wish you could save them. That's probably my only true complaint. The system does create, especially in a co-op setting when you're playing with a friend, it does create some guffaws, some chortling.
There's some chortles. Yeah, what's next? Well, Hyle, before we get into really the meat of the game, because we've been talking about the sort of the theme of the game, the look of the game, the style and the tone and the humor and the characters, I wanted to talk with regards to gameplay. I have this little theory, I guess, like a thesis. It's sort of a way of thinking about multiplayer video games, or at least a way of talking about them for sure. And I've wanted to talk about it on the podcast, but I never really have a chance because we don't talk a lot about these kinds of multiplayer head-to-head games very often on the podcast. So do you mind if will you indulge me? You let me sort of muse lyrical about some little pet theory?
Jeff, you are my muse. I would be out of line if I did not let my muse muse.
All right. Well, cool. So here we go. Here's my Jeff's theory of multiplayer games. It goes, all multiplayer games exist on a spectrum, a sliding axis of their gameplay style. Okay. And on one end of that spectrum, you have something like Mario Kart, where Mario Kart does not have a very high ceiling in terms of like hidden advanced technique, okay? Mario Kart has a lot of randomness. It's very high in chaos, chaotic gameplay, and there's a lot of punishing the leader to sort of level out the skill gap. Mario Kart prioritizes the silly fun and making sure everyone is in the match and having a silly fun time. It prioritizes that over fairness, per se. In short, it's a game for goobers, okay? It's for people who want to have a goober time, and that makes it a goober game.
Not
on the other
to be confused with gooners, because that's
no, because cowgirls are not in Mario. Although the new one has costumes, the new Mario Kart World will have costumes, so there might be gooning cowgirls.
And Pauline actually had a cowgirl costume in Mario Kart Tour.
Uh-oh. So. Gun. So on the other end of this spectrum, of this axis, you know what? Even just staying right in the world of kart racers, just as a parallel to Mario Kart, as a counter, even just in the kart racer realm, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have Diddy Kong Racing. Mm-hmm. Diddy Kong Racing doesn't have a lot or really any unfair randomness. None of the items are random. You always know what item you're going to get, and you can memorize where they're going to be at. You have advanced techniques you can learn. You can master the boosting. In Diddy Kong Racing, the better player is going to win. And in that way, it's a more pure competition. So if Mario Kart is for goobers, Diddy Kong Racing is for Ubers. Right?
Oh,
okay,
nice.
So the Goober game asks you the question, like, how silly can we get? While the Uber game asks, who is the best? And it's, casual versus competitive. Another example, I mean, you could look at the wide world of multiplayer gaming, but even if we just stay close to Nintendo for our audience here, another example of an Uber game would be Splatoon. Not a lot of unfair randomness in that, a very high skill ceiling. Meanwhile, for the degenerate goobers, there's whatever bullshit Mario Party has, Wow. Roll a dice and get your shit stolen. It's
Jeff, you are insulting so many of our regular listeners right now. Here's I know what you're saying. I'm on board with what you're saying. Just, I've learned from experience, every time you poke the eyes of the Mario Party community, they will bite your wrist off.
Well, I can bring it back because I think that you're not getting. I think I might not be putting my best foot out there, because I don't mean to say any of this as a value judgment on what is the better or right way to do a multiplayer game. There's no right or wrong way. There are goober games and there are Uber games on the scale, on the spectrum, on the axis, but there's not one better than the other. It's a style. It is a choice. It is a lifestyle. Yeah. Okay. And every multiplayer game exists on the spectrum. And all of them have to contend with that question: Uber versus Goober, okay? And we at DK Vine, we love Goober games. In fact, if you ever follow us on Twitch and watch us stream, you're going to find out pretty quick that we are Goober tubers. We are Goober tubers. So, just to elaborate even further, like the difference between an Uber game and a Goober game, when it comes to something like map design, an Uber game in map design, they're going to be looking at sight lines. They're going to be talking about choke points. They're going to be analyzing the angle of approach. Meanwhile, in a Goober game, a map might have a button that will activate the volcano. That's something they're concerned about. There are things that a game can do to mitigate if it's too Uber or too Goober, or to open it up to try and appeal to more people. An Uber game might put in ranked modes and skill-based matchmaking. That way they can quarantine the sweatiest players away from the newbiest Goobers. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, a Goober game could put in toggles in the settings. So you could toggle off some of the more bullshit items or stage hazards to try and approach that Uber-Goober harmony. And you know what? While we're on the subject, that a lack of Uber-Goober harmony might be why sometimes people can have a bad time or a bad day when they're playing a game like Sea of Thieves, for example. Because in my opinion, Sea of Thieves is a Goober game, but there's like a really solid percentage of its player base that are Uber tubers that they don't always mix, and that you'll have that. Hyle, there's one game on my mind that is in the DKU, that exists right in the smack dab middle of my axis between Uber and Goober, because it can fit perfect harmony. It can be the best Uber game you can play, or it can be the best Goober game you can play, because it has all the options, and it has what everyone wants. Whether you want Uber, it has exactly what you want, and whether you want Goober, it has what you want. Which DKU game am I talking about? It's Super Smash Brothers. Super Smash Brothers, in my opinion, is the perfect multiplayer game because it has something for everyone. It can be every bit as chaotic and silly and doofusy as anyone might want it to be, but it also can be the most hardcore competitive experience for the sweaty Uber tubers. So anyway,
All Fox, Final Destination, etc.
Yep, Richard Nixon, etc. So
we didn't start the fire.
He didn't. I don't know. Harry Truman, Doris Day. So why do I bring up any of this? We're talking about a multiplayer game. We're about to get into the nitty gritty, and we've just talked about how goofy, silly this game. This game is about gooning cowgirls and the Marshmallow Man, the bag of beans, and the long-armed TikTok dances. This must be the gooberiest game of all. But Hyle, you and I sat down. We explored it together in remote play off of the Steam service, and we kind of found that the game has a bit of surprising depth to its gameplay.
Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway playing it with you, was just how nuanced it could actually be, especially when you start diving into the various modifiers, but we'll save that. Like, just the gameplay itself, just the basic, you've got the basketball on the court, you're playing a round of dunk, just that alone has more depth than I would have thought going into this.
Absolutely. So first off, I mean, just getting a hang of maneuvering your character around is a little tricky, because you think, okay, it's a platformer, I jump to jump, and that's it. Well, no, there's an air dash. You jump, and then you jump again to air dash, but you have to kind of tilt the stick in the direction you want to go to do the air dash, and that takes a little getting used to. With the other stick, you have 360-degree arm movement whenever you're holding on to the ball. Mm-hmm. And as you play, you realize that comes into play not only, when I'm getting close to the basket, I'm going to start spinning the ball around because I'm trying to get it in there, and I'm just sort of frantically, it's the equivalent of mashing the button. In this case, it's spinning the stick of like, oh no, I'm close to the goal. How do I get the ball to go in there? I need to spin my arms. But as you get a little better, you realize, oh, it feels good to like know where I'm coming from and like spin at just the right angle, or wind up a long spin, because one of the trick shots you can do that gives you a nice announcer call out is the more circles that you spin around. I think that like a mega dunk is if you spin 540 degrees. There's another dunk. Ultra dunk is maybe 720 degrees, whatever. So spinning the ball around you 360 degrees before you dunk is cool. But then you play even more and you realize that being able to hold the ball at any angle around your character is not just for dunking. It's for blocking. It's for playing keep away, because if someone's chasing you from your left, you can hold the ball to your right, and it feels all of a sudden like you're playing basketball with your little damn brother in the backyard, and go ahead and take it. I'm taller than you. You cannot reach my long arm.
So then they drive into you with their Power Wheel Ford Bronco.
Well, yes. Well, if your brother is Orenthal James Simpson, then you might get tackled. That guy's a football player. So was R.I.P. in peace, my bud. All right. Dunk. There's also, we talk a lot about dunking here on the Dunk podcast, but you don't have to dunk. You can pass, you can shoot, you can launch the ball. Yeah. And sometimes when you get close to the hoop and you try to dunk and you're a little bit off and you're like, you know what? I'll just do a layup. I'll just flick those fingers and let the ball fly. I'm this close. Let's just toss it in. And that feels good.
That feels great when you pull it off, because it has to be precise. It has to be dead on, or else It will just sail past. But then you also, depending on the court you're playing, you also have the possibility of rebounding off of the environment. And, that is also like part of the nuance of Dunk is utilizing the court to your advantage.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and you not only do you have an air dash, you also have a wall jump, I forgot to say. You also, and Hyle touched on, shooting the ball has to be super precise. I don't know if we've gotten the point across well enough that it is really, really hard to shoot a basket in this basketball game. The reason that we keep talking about dunking is because dunking is 10 times easier than shooting. This game is like, you have to be so precise to shoot a basket from a distance. So most of the time you want to get close, and then if you're going to get close, you just want to dunk. Although we did see a pretty wicked goal get scored against us by a CPU the last time we played, where a ball bounced off of an elevator platform. It went under the map, and it does the map does that Pac-Man thing where if you go off the map, you come out the other side. You know, like in Pac-Man. Like in Pac-Man. And so the ball bounced off an elevator platform, went off the map, came up off the ceiling of the map, bounced off another platform, and went right into our goal. They had the longest thrown basket I've ever seen, which was so impressive because it never happens. Nobody can throw a basket in Dunk. It's hard. Before we talk about those cool maps, because like I just said, there's elevator platforms, and Hyle touched on cool maps, we do have to mention the last pretty substantial cool move you can do, which is blocking. And a blocking in basketball sounds pretty straightforward. It doesn't sound very exciting. It doesn't sound like a shape-shifting superpower. However, if you believe that, you'd be wrong. Hyle, tell them about blocking.
Well, blocking in this game involves your character effectively becoming one of those floppy inner tube men from used car lots.
Yes, you stretch out into just a long cylinder. Like, you just you know what? I'm going to block in this direction. I'm aiming slightly north by southeast. And I hit that button, and my character just extends like 4 or 5 times my character's body length into a cylinder. And magically superpower shapeshifts. And what that does is not only do I create a wall that is blocking, but that wall can be a platform to stand on. I can use that defensively to block someone from my goal. I could use that offensively to assist my teammate. I could become the platform that the dunker is about to jump onto to jump up and dunk the ball. And how cool is it when you pull it off?
Well, that's something I realized when we were playing together, because we had a good time just playing against each other, but where I really, really enjoyed Dunk was when we were on a team against the CPU, because I love co-op just in general. Like, co-op has always been my preferred method of playing games with friends, but that added element of, using each other as a platform, as a boost to get up to it's not a basket as much as it is this black hole that's like just hovering on your side of the court. But yeah, like you can use each other to get up there or to evade or to steal the ball. And there's just so much variety in the gameplay that opens up when you have that extra friend on the court on your side.
Yeah, the game completely opens up when you play 2v2. And I should point out that I learned, we haven't played this way, but you can actually play 4-player. You can play 2v2 with all human beings. You can play up to four human players. And in fact, the game has a tournament mode where you can get 16 players involved. And so you can have 16 human beings play this game. Now, obviously, they're not all simultaneous. It's a tournament where you do sets of 2v2. But that's cool. And I love when a game has that option. It's always disappointing when a cool couch multiplayer game comes out, but then it sort of limits. It's like, well, you can only play 2 players. And it's like, well, why? I want everyone, especially a game like this, where you do not need a split screen. This is a single screen game. Everyone is in the same arena, a small 2-dimensional space. So you don't need to do split screen. Everyone can just share the same space, just like Smash Brothers, just like Mario Brothers Arcade or whatever. I don't know what other examples, but like we've said so many. IDARB. Everyone who has ever listened to our podcast, you know about IDARB. Look it up. So, yeah, we've talked about that. Do you want to talk about the cool maps? There are some cool ones.
Yeah. Now, again, these are all mostly based off of horror, sci-fi movies. You know, there's some, I'm not really sure what the theme is supposed to be. Ruins of Dumb in particular. I don't know what that's a reference to.
Yeah, I don't know either. And the visual theme of it is, it looks like a sort of maybe a post-apocalypse desert, like a Mad Maxy sort of canyon or something like that. Like, or it's just a general sort of heavy metal canyon landscape or something. But
yes, all those famous heavy metal canyons out west.
Right. If you look at album art of stuff, like, you know, I'm talking about like the Ragnarok setting in like an old school Battletoads game, or like, you know, go look at a Uriah Heep album cover.
No, I wasn't expecting the Uriah Heep reference, but yeah.
Well, I've heard that Uriah has a very strong smell to it, but I wouldn't know, because I'm a Nosmic. So yes, there are some cool maps. I mean, it does. We like them. The theming of the maps are great. There's the one cemetery map where you occasionally see like UFOs abducting stuff in the background. Like it's all cool. Then you have the gameplay of the maps. I think on the one hand, I will say this touches on all the stuff you kind of expect from a game like this. IDARB had the same kind of maps where you've got the one that has portals and the one that has elevators and the one that has springs or whatever. But I don't want to say that like it's a bad thing. They have all the kinds of maps you might want. There's a good variety. There's not 5 maps. There's like 10. And I think that the variety that's there is really solid for a game like this. For how cheap and simple this game is, you have all the maps you're gonna want, I think.
Yeah. You'll have the map that takes place in the like under the sea laboratory, and then you've got like water geysers shooting up that can just like launch you or push you down depending on which direction they're going. You've got ones that utilize rotating platforms around the basket, we'll just call it, and you know, you can then use that for your rebounding, or you've got the ones with the very bouncy springs that will just launch you across the arena.
Yeah, there's the one where there are like obstacles that block off parts of the map until you hit the lever.
Mm-hmm.
That one I haven't really got the hang of, or I can't tell if I think it's an annoying map or if I just didn't get the hang of it. Maybe that's it. But either way, it's not my favorite. I really like the one that's just a bunch of small elevatory platforms.
Yeah.
Because that's the one that you just kind of, I'm just going to fall through the floor so I can respawn by the ceiling. That is a great map where you're, because it does that Pac-Man thing. So if you fall through one side of the map, you appear on the other side. If you fall through the floor, you appear at the ceiling. And it's really nice when you're chasing a bouncing basketball around to just be like, oh, it's all the way over there. I'm going to fall through the floor and jump up at the ceiling, and I'm going to be closer to the ball. It's great.
Yeah, finally basketball for those of us who are too lazy to walk.
Yeah, basketball, it's all right, but it's a lot of running. And boy, those shoes be squeaky. Have you listened to the shoes? Next time you watch a basketball, turn off the people and just listen to the shoes. And boy, is it squeaky. No, too much.
I'm pretty sure my TV has that audio setting. Shoes
Right.
only.
I've got YouTube TV, and that's one of the choices. So, one thing that we appreciate, we've talked a lot about some variety here, and we're going to get into the modes, the mutators. Mutators are kind of the settings options that you have when you set up a match, and there's a lot of those. But before we get into the depth of all that or the detail, one thing we like about it is that they actually restrict a lot of these features from you at the very start.
Yeah.
And you have to unlock them, which might sound annoying, but the journey to unlock everything is very fast. It's like, actually, I have it written down here. Ooh, I flipped the wrong page. Okay, okay. Yeah, so you cannot unlock the Mutator Madness mode until you've played at least one quick match. That seems fair to me, because who should jump in and play Mutator Madness as their very first match? It shouldn't happen. It doesn't make any sense. So you have to play a quick match before you unlock Mutator Madness. You have to win 3 matches before you unlock the Cup mode. The Cup mode is what it sounds like. It's like Mario Kart. Can you beat all the cups? You have to play a Galaxy Tour, which we'll talk about, before you unlock Challenge mode. I like all that. And then all of the mutators. Whether you want to unlock different types of basketballs, whether you want to get different mutations to the goal itself can be, let's say it's a goal that moves around the map. Let's say it's a goal that teleports, or a goal that shrinks and grows as the map goes on. All those mutators, you have to unlock that. You can unlock changes to the physics, like when you set up the match, you can change the physics. You can make everyone faster or floatier, low gravity, high gravity. You can unlock changes to, you can make it so magic platforms appear and disappear. All this stuff can happen, but it's all locked when you start the game. And then it's all unlockable very straightforwardly and doesn't require you a lot of time. But I like this because it presents to you, when you first jump in, a fairly simple game, so you don't get overwhelmed. The other stuff is locked, and then that entices you to think, oh, there's more to come if I play and I get to unlock it. I feel like too many games now will give you everything all up front because they're afraid to, they're afraid, what if you drop off the game in the first hour? Then you won't have ever experienced all our stuff. And I think that the sense of progression when you play a game is important, even a multiplayer game. Maybe the granddaddy is like Super Smash Brothers Melee. That's like one of the multiplayer games of all time. And there's a lot of content in that game that is locked when you start it up. How long does it take you to get a Mewtwo? It takes so long to get a Mewtwo. But it feels good. It feels good when you get a Mewtwo, and this game kind of has that feel.
You've got that progression, but also it's just a nice way to make sure you've got the fundamentals down before you start mucking about with the formula. Because, this is a game that requires a little bit of a learning curve to get the hang of because of its jumping and air dashing that is essential. Yeah, you've got to figure that out, or else you're going to be like, why can't I move properly? But once you realize it's effectively, the designers said they were inspired by Fox's air dash in Smash Brothers. And
that's right. They did say that, yeah.
Yeah, so once you understand that and the game suddenly starts clicking for you, then you can start adding some of the Goober elements, as you would say, like the turning the basketball into an anvil, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different balls. You can have a basketball, an anvil. There's an inflatable balloon that just kind of like it feels like chasing a balloon in real life. Have you ever chased a balloon around your living room? It sucks. The thing is like so slow and floaty, and it like just bounces weird.
Yeah, that's what I had to play with because my parents wouldn't get me a Power Wheel. So they just gave me a balloon and just said, have at it.
Yeah, some kids get like toys to play in the bathtub, like a fish or a tugboat.
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to play with Pokemon. I wanted some water type Pokemon to play in the bathtub, but my mom would not buy me a Squirtle. So instead, she printed off pictures of Squirtle and laminated them so I could play with Squirtle in the bathtub. She went to her job at her work. They had a laminator.
Wow, that's exactly like what I was talking about.
Right? I didn't have no damn big wheel, or what would you call it?
Power wheel.
Power wheel. I didn't have a big wheel neither. I didn't even have fucking roller skates. All right. So yeah, there's the mutators, different types of balls, physics effects. We're not going to list every single one, but I think we've given a good idea that this game has a lot of variety. And as Hyle said, a lot of goober variety. It's goobered options. I think that probably the what do you call it? The quintessential element of that is that there's a whole mode called Mutator Madness. Mutator Madness is a mode where it's like would you say it's every 5 seconds? Or am I exaggerating? I feel like it is like every 5 seconds.
It's very rapid. It's surprisingly rapid.
Right. Like it's not 10 seconds. It's fast. It's like every 5 seconds, all of the mutators, all of the random settings changes, they change.
Mm-hmm.
So you play a whole match. A match might last 180 seconds. That's the standard. So a 3-minute match. In a 3-minute match, every 5 seconds, all of a sudden, the ball will change to a different type of ball. You might get a physics change where suddenly the gravity changes or your speed or something changes. You might get a change where the goalposts are shifting. You might get a change where there are now magic platforms popping up that you have to like break through or whatever. Every 5 seconds, all of the mutations change. And that's Mutator Madness. That's like the gooberiest goober that this game can muster.
Yeah, we played a round of that, and it was very chaotic. We were able to keep our heads, but I think playing again, if we were playing against the CPU and not very difficult, but we just wanted to get the taste of it. But I'm sure it would just be utter chaos against human players because like that's the kind of like madcap, like Mario Kart style. Or just like Smash Brothers with the items just ramped up. That's the kind of stuff that, that's not my thing per se, but that will definitely appeal to the gooberiest of goobers out there.
Well, and Hyle is an Uber player, so he doesn't want that in there. He wants a peak competition.
No,
but
so I like a balance. I like a balance, Jeff. I'm right in the middle, I would say. I like a little bit of randomness, but I also like for there to be some skill involved. I don't just like Russian roulette.
The gameplay has to have a little depth to it. It takes a little practice and skill, and you feel good when you pull it off. But then the things happening around you can be a little silly and random, but not to the extreme. Where what I'll say is that the Mutator Madness, what's crazy about it is it's like every 5 seconds, but the first 2 seconds you're just looking at the symbols and trying to like. Your brain is taking a full second to just process, oh, okay, the ball changed to an anvil. Oh, and the goal post is a black hole now or whatever. Like, it just processing what has changed takes up half of your time before the next change is going to happen. It's chaos. So that was cool. There are a lot of other modes. We've said there's quick match, there's tournament formats. You can play these against players or against CPUs. You can choose the difficulty of the CPUs from easy all the way up onto really hard. I think that all works really well. There's a cup mode. which works like you would expect in Mario Kart, a cup. Here, play a set of 4 stages. Can you come out on top? There is a challenge mode, which sort of works like the event mode in Super Smash Bros. It's just like a set of pre-made scenarios that you go through. There's 50, which is not insubstantial. 50 challenges. Hop in. Can you beat it? And once you get to the end, I think like the last 5 or 8 challenges in a row, I think it's every map, however many maps there are, let's say 8 or 10. The hardest challenge is this. I would liken it to, in Smash Brothers, they have the break the targets mode. There's a map level where a challenge mode level where you have to like dunk the ball into a precarious place surrounded by fiery gas clouds, and if you mess up, it chips away at your time. And then once you dunk that ball, then the ball moves to an even more precarious place, and then it moves to an even more precarious place. And these are like the last 8 or 10 challenges of the challenge mode. I cannot beat any of them. I've tried. I played a lot this week. Obviously, I could play more. I could get better. I might. But that just goes to show that even in the gooberiest of games, they have put in this challenge that's like, see, there is skill involved because you can't do it. It's hard, isn't it? And it is hard. There is I think this game does have a very high skill ceiling, and I would love to see what it looks like to play against like a really good player and just watch them just destroy me and see the kind of maneuvers they can pull off, because I bet this game has it has the opportunity to do really cool stuff if you get that good at it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, part of me wants to get that good at it because I feel like I would have a shot, for once, at being one of the world's best players at something.
Yeah. Well, and you should, because there's not any other DKU video games coming out this summer that you have to spend your time on. So let's just spend the summer getting good at Dunk Dunk, you and I, and we'll go to the Dunk Dunk World Finals. Summer of Dunk! I think you touched on... Oh, you know what? Actually, there is the one more mode. The main big old mode that we haven't talked about. We should talk about, right?
Yeah.
Story mode. They don't call it story mode. They call it Galaxy Tour.
Yeah.
But what you would call it story mode, right? That's what I called it.
I mean, that's what it is. If you're trying to explain what Galaxy Tour is to somebody, you would say it's effectively Dunk Dunk's story mode. It's the main campaign, if you will.
And it sort of is like classic mode in Smash Brothers, except that in Smash Brothers, every character has their own different classic mode, right?
Right.
And in this is like one classic mode. But basically what it is you play a set of 8 matches in a row. And throughout those 8 matches, a couple of them are like bonus target game matches. Just hit the dunks, hit the dunks and dunk it. But it's like, can you beat 8 matches in a row without failing too many times? And if you can, then you've done it. Although, they let you choose your difficulty setting. And this is a really funny thing. They let you choose your difficulty setting. And if you play at the most maximum difficulty, like the hardest in insanity mode, and then if you beat the Galaxy Tour, then you will get a cutscene at the end that is the victory cutscene, as you would expect in a video game. And the cutscene will play out, and you'll watch it, and it will be over, and then you'll have won. You've just got the super secret best cutscene, which you can only get if you beat it on the super intense difficulty. Okay,
yeah,
that's so far so normal. So dunk. But here's where they do kind of interesting is that if you play it on any easier level, you have a long a slider. You can slide however difficult you want it to be, all the way down to way easy, and any bit in between.
It's like the slider in Smash, in its classic mode.
Yeah, there's a slider in that too. I forgot about that. So yeah, it's like a slider in Smash, or for example, a slider in anything else. It's like it's a slider. It's not like a slider at White Castle restaurant.
or Jerry O'Connell and John Rhys Davies. Not like those sliders.
This is a good podcast, the conversation.
I feel like this is going to get people in the mood for the Nintendo Switch too.
They're ready. This is what they've been waiting for. So you can slide, you can pick your difficulty, but here's the funny part, is that if you pick any difficulty besides max, then you play it, you win, you're still going to get the ending cutscene, but it's going to cut the cutscene short. Based on how much of that cutscene you've earned.
Yeah.
If you only played it half as hard, you're going to get half a cutscene. Or if you're Hyle and I, you're going to get literally 3 seconds of a cutscene.
So Jeff delved into this game a little bit more hardcore than I did at first. When it came out, Jeff really spent some time with it. I didn't have time to spend with it until it like opened up in the like conversation docket, and I was like, I have to now play Dunk Dunk for my job. But Jeff was describing this to me before I experienced it. I was like, this sounds terrible. That like this notion that you only see maybe 3 seconds of the final cutscene.
Well, and I didn't say 3 seconds. I actually just said you only get a portion of the cutscene if you don't play at the max. Yeah. And so you didn't know how small the portion was going to be.
So when I experienced it, and Jeff like braced me for it, when I saw this for the first time, and we played on the most easiest difficulty just to experience it, but you see maybe 3 seconds of the final cutscene. It's this you don't know what's happening. You see these people with basketballs for heads. One of them has like a name tag on them that says like mom or something.
Right. What are they holding, like picket signs or something?
I don't know. Holding. And then it just cuts off. It's like the cutscene starts and it's like people cheering. They all have basketballs for heads. One of them is your mom, and then back. And it's like this. It's like the finale to The Sopranos. You're like, wait, what? What did I miss? Wait, did we lose the signal? What happened? What happened? And that's it. You got 3 seconds, and that's it. And once I saw it in execution, in action, I said to Jeff, okay, never mind. That's brilliant. That's hilarious. It made me bust out laughing because I didn't realize how bizarre the ending cutscene would seem, especially when you get no context for it. And it does make me want to dive back into it and make me get some of that context. And that's kind of smart. That's kind of giving you enough tasty breadcrumbs where you're going to want to keep following that trail to the witch's house in the forest. Yeah. Which. I think that if you're going to do that thing where you tease the cutscene, then the teaser better be incredibly cryptic. Yeah. And they nailed it. They made it so that I have no fucking clue what that's about, and it's funny. I was confused. I was a little aroused. It's perfect. Well, we all were. It's great because we just completed the Galaxy tour. So, we don't have a whole lot more to say. We are going to have a call coming up. We're going to have our final thoughts. We should probably comment on the fact that there are 2 versions of this game. There's you can get this on the Nintendo Switch, and you can get this on Steam. Yes. You are the one among us who has played both versions, so let us know. Just why don't you tell us what are your thoughts on the differences? Sure. Well, Steam is definitely the faster, more polished experience, and of course, we were playing on our computers. Neither of us have Steam Decks, because we're broke boys. We don't, have much in the way of disposable income most days. And we just had to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 for, the second best game of the summer, Donkey Kong Bonanza, after Dunk Dunk. That's number 1. But Steam is just faster load times. The Switch version is, functional. It's all there, but the loading times can get a little bit aggravating. I think that the upside to the Switch version would be that you've got that up on your TV. You can sit down on the couch with 4 controllers and play with human people. Yeah. Which is a little awkward. You can't really do that on Steam as conveniently. But if you're just going to be playing it solo or through Steam Remote Play like we did, then the Steam version works great. Yes, so there's no online multiplayer, which is probably the biggest detriment this game has, because it is a game that really comes alive when you're playing it with your buddies. And unless those buddies are in the same room as you, then you've got to resort to methods like Steam Remote Play. Now, this is the first time Jeff or myself have ever engaged with this, so it took a while to rig it up. Steam Remote Play basically lets you simulate online multiplayer even when it's not a built-in feature of the game.
Yeah, it lets you, it turns your online computers and it makes them think that you are playing together on the couch. It makes them think that I'm at Hyle's house.
Yes, because Jeff had to log in with my Steam account. And what then happened was it created some weird issues for us, weird technical hiccups. And I'm sure if we were more well-versed in Steam, this wouldn't have been an issue. But for one thing, we seemingly had control over each other's computers for a bit there. I would try to move my cursor, and then Jeff would move his, and then my cursor would move where Jeff would move it, or vice versa. And like our audio configurations would then revert back and forth depending on like which of us set it to what, and it was very, very disorienting and a huge invasion of privacy. But it's okay. I trust my friend Jeff to to not click on that secret folder I have that's marked tax returns.
I went into his files and I found nude photographs of his dog.
Yeah, all of them are nude, actually.
Yeah. No, that's normal. Those are normal photographs of dogs. Yeah, you don't have to label that folder tax returns. I don't know what you're doing. It was functional. We had horrible lag, but that's because I have horrible internet connection. We don't blame that on Dunk or Valve, the Steam, anyone. We blame that on Jeff. But we got a way to play. This is the part that's great about it, is like, for example, something like Battletoads 2020 was intended to come out pre-COVID, and it was purely only a couch multiplayer game. There was no online. Then it got delayed, and then COVID happened. And all of a sudden, your couch multiplayer game looks pretty suspicious when nobody in the world is allowed to go to each other's house. And that game didn't have the option to simulate this janky where I was hacking Hyle's computer. I could not hack Hyle's Xbox to play Battletoads with him, but we could do it here. And whether or not it was janky, it at least worked. And we got to play this game multiplayer with each other. And that really opened up the game and made it more fun.
Absolutely. And that really was where the page turned for me, and I became a huge Dunk cultist, a devotee of Dunk.
A Dunkaholic?
A Dunkaholic, yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, if anything we've said it raises eyebrows about issues, or you think, oh, blah, blah, keep in mind, this game costs $6.99 on Steam and $8.99 on the Nintendo Switch. Yeah. So, this costs less than a gallon of gas or whatever. I don't know. It's not much. You could buy this and then you could have it. It's cheap. It's cheapo.
Cheap.
So
that's a Mario Kart World character.
One dozen eggs or 1 dozen copies of Dunk. Think about it.
Think about it. In a live stream, Chocolate Milk Drinker says, and brings up a great point, I think there being no online play is a good thing because those servers would tank in like a week. Another benefit of Dunk being so affordable is, you can't really have online infrastructure. So right. It's fine. We love it. We love Dunk. We love Dunk as is.
Dunk.
Dunk. So we have a call.
We do have a call.
We have a call about Dunk. Hell yeah.
One call about Dunk?
One call about
it's
Dunk.
Under 90. It's under 90 seconds. It's not 10 parts long.
It's just one call. It's not even a call. It's just one call about Dunk.
Hello, Jeff. Hello, Hyle. I'm calling in for the episode on Dunk. I think two observations about this. Number one, the game itself looks very fun, very stylish, very innovative. I think making essentially a 2D platformer out of basketball is a very creative idea, and if all sports games were this good, EA would be my favorite company. I also think from a meta perspective, it's interesting that like every semi-prominent indie game seems to be in a rush to include as many additional indie game characters as possible, I guess as a form of like cross-indie solidarity. And it's interesting that like the Waluigi rule and like a lot of the specific rules around what counts as DKU were initially, it seems like, created to get around like Mario games and like some Mario sports games, but it like decades later is becoming useful so that DK Vine is not obligated to cover every single indie game that comes out, as good as they may be. I want to end off with a question, namely, I believe there's a holy trinity of DKO basketball games. There's Dunk Dunk, there's Mario Hoops 3-on-3, and there's Mario Sports Mix, which has a basketball mode. In your very core of your being, be honest, which is the best one? And before you answer, remember that Hoops 3-on-3 has Dixie Kong. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the call.
Thank.
So as I said in my recent Donkey Kong Universe video, my 75-minute video where I just lay out the history of the concept, if, we followed all of the various like cameo game appearances of all the various DKU characters, and then we had to follow those characters in those games, it would encompass the entire multiverse of video games at this point. That being said, I would love to, see what Jaws 3D gets up to in a few years. Like, put that guy in another game.
I like, my favorite Jaws is Jaws 4, The Revenge, because the subtitle for that movie, the tagline is that, this time, it's personal, which I find very funny with regards to a killer shark.
A shark, right.
Yeah. See, if Dunk Dunk were to get spin-offs, I would be there day one. I would be checking that out. I will be paying attention to Badgerhammer's future releases because this game impressed me a lot. I want to find out, what else they work on. It'll be very interesting to see, especially knowing that this was like a roughly a 2-person development for the majority of the development. It's a small team, a passion project. Everyone's name is Nick.
Yeah.
Even the janitor, even their accountant. They're all Nicks.
Yeah.
And it makes you want to support them in a way. Like, at least I'm curious to check out what they're up to. And if they were to keep Jaws 3D or Marshmallow Melty in a future game, I'd want to find that out. Now, would I want it to be DKU? Would I, no. It doesn't make sense for the DKU to follow all these spin-offs and all these things, but
I don't know, but I think Dunk Dunk is another tier. We'll have that debate later, but I think that this is a game that doesn't feel like it was made by 2 people. Like, yes, obviously a very small team because it is, as you said, a budget title, and it's not Breath of the Wild or anything like that, but it still feels like it's punching well above its weight. It's something I say often when it comes to indie games, but it's really, really true for Dunk Dunk. Just an incredible job. And the gameplay, this would be make or break, right? If the gameplay was bad, if it was clunky, if it was sluggish or unresponsive, Dunk Dunk would not be worth your time. They nailed it. They nailed the gameplay. They nailed the mechanics. And the depth and the nuance, it just keeps going. I am just astounded.
And now, I don't want to oversell it. Because it is a simple game. It has, there's a limited thing there. The thing that it is fun. It's super cheap. You can get it for very few US dollars.
Yes.
And then when you whatever joy you get out of it is going to be worth your money because it's going to give you hours that are worthwhile. I'm not trying to oversell it like it's incredible, like it's this the second coming of Super Smash Bros. Melee or whatever. It is very fun, and I think it's absolutely worth every dollar. I would highly recommend it to people. And what was the question? I was going to come back to it.
Best DKU basketball game.
I don't feel even remotely conflicted in saying that I think the best DKU basketball game is Dunk Dunk.
I agree completely.
Well, there you go.
I love this game, and I love it the same degree I love IDARB, #IDARB. So just real tale from the Kongversation book here. The last episode of the Kongversation I did with Adam and Andrew of the Idaho crew. I ended up editing that episode until 5 a.m. I was exhausted the next day. I got a few hours of sleep, but then birds were like cracking seeds on my window and they kept waking me up, and I'm just like, So I was just dead on my feet like a Dunk Dunk zombie the entire day. And then Jeff and I, we had an appointment to play Dunk Dunk that evening. And I was like, okay, pull myself together. I've got to do this for my job. As a responsible Donkey Kong journalist, I have to play Dunk Dunk. And we tried out the multiplayer, and I had such a good time that my adrenaline pumped me up for the rest of the night. I did not feel tired until I went to bed. Dunk Dunk gets the job done.
Yeah. Hyle Russell runs on Dunk Dunk. Yeah. You know what? Mario Hoops 3-on-3, Mario Sports Mix. It's cool that there are it is cool that there are basketball games that have Mario characters and Donkey Kong characters. But Dunk Dunk is a better basketball game than those. I mean, it's more fun. It's more novel, yeah. I think. And I enjoy it. I think, well, and it may be a bias in that I just really like these 2D arena sports games.
Sure.
That's just a style of game I grew up on and that I've always loved. So it's great. Now, before we go, I did want to just settle in the question of where does Dunk Dunk land on the Uber Goober scale? Mm-hmm. And, I'm just going to say it. I think that Dunk Dunk, it might be slightly more Goober than Uber. It's hard to say. But I think Dunk Dunk does a very successful job of steering towards the middle, which is hard to do. I've mentioned that Super Smash Bros. Is the greatest multiplayer game of all time because it is successfully a great Goober game and a great Uber game. And I think that this game is outwardly appears to be Goober, but its core play has enough depth that it's Uber. So it's Goober and it's Uber, and then you've got options to sort of choose how you want to play with a lot of great Goober options. Yes, you can turn the ball into an anvil. That's great. So I think that is right in its own way a testament to a great multiplayer game is when it can appeal to both and please both and not just be like you don't want the game that is oh, we have Goober options, but it's too Uber, or a game that is it's too Goober, but it tries to be Uber, whatever. Those don't work. This game appeals to both while working. It works for both. So, there you go. That's Dunk Dunk.
That is Dunk Dunk. Yeah.
That's Dunk Dunk.
Dunk Dunk.
Dunk 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 Dunk. Final thought, though, Hyle, I do want to say, while we're talking about these little multiplayer arena 2D battle platform games like Joust or, for example, Balloon Fight or Joust, I would like for them to make, if I could ask, I would like for them to make one starring Donkey Kong if it was a Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
If it was the way that Mario Brothers Arcade is a little battle mode that feels like you're playing Mario Brothers, but in a battle mode. I would like there to be a Donkey Kong Country, but if it was like Donkey Kong Country, if it was in a battle mode.
Okay.
Okay.
You want that game?
I would like that. You could maybe call it Donkey Kong Country Guerrilla Warfare.
Oh, it's a great name.
It's sort of a pun. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a pun.
Yeah, it is. That is the definition of a pun. You look it up in the dictionary.
The Dictionary.
This has been a File 2 production.
¡Qué rico!